This morning, we take you to Florence, Italy, for a special look at one of the city's most sacred buildings. Adjacent to the cathedral known as the Duomo, the baptistry of St. John dates back to the 11th century. Like the Duomo, the baptistry is owned and managed by a secular nonprofit, the Opera di Santa Maria del Fiore. The opera spends millions of euros each year to maintain these treasures. The latest project involves the baptistry's mosaic artwork. We visited to see the process up close, a unique opportunity that remarkably is also open to the public. With its 8 soaring walls and prismatic roof, the baptistry of St. John is a magnificent sight to behold. Over the past decade, conservators have worked to restore the outside of the building, then its interior walls. Now those efforts have moved to the 10 million gilded and polychrome tiles that form the ceiling's mosaics.
Incredibile.
Sì, è veramente fantastico.
Samuele Casciagli is the architect overseeing the project. The first step, designing and installing the mushroom-shaped scaffolding, which measures more than 100 feet tall.
How long did it take to build just the structure so that you could do the restoration this way?
Questa è una domanda alla quale rispondo con molto piacere.
This is a question I love, says Casciagli, because just 40 days were needed to build access to the mosaics.
Diretto ai mosaici.
And that access isn't just for the experts. The baptistry is keeping its doors open, giving visitors an unprecedented view.
Questo permette di
This allows for the baptistry to still be open for worship, he said, and to allow visitors to see different stages of the restoration site.
restauro del mosaico.
Tiled by Tuscan masters during the 13th century, the mosaics depict sweeping biblical scenes.
This kind of scaffolding is very unique.
There are 100 stairs to the top.
You have to see it to believe it.
My guides were archaeologist Roberto Nardi and architect Beatrice Agostini.
It doesn't get old looking at this, I'll say that.
Both are with the Center for Archaeological Conservation, the private firm managing the 10 million euro restoration.
Do you remember what that was like when you first saw it this close?
Yes, you'll never forget.
Previous undertakings by the center have included restoring these 6th century mosaics in St. Catherine's Monastery at Mount Sinai in Egypt, and work on these sculptures in Rome, a project which was open to the public during restoration.
We believe that culture does not belong to privates, and we don't work for privates. We work with public money for the public.
The efforts on these mosaics are aimed at stopping any deterioration and improving the stability of the tiles.
Well, you have to imagine that we are into a huge glass bowl.
Right, right.
And the glass is made for reflecting light. If we have several missing tiles, the light would be out of scale, like missing pixels.
Mm-hmm.
It will take at least another year to map to determine if there's damage or instability.
And it's tile by tile, section by section?
Section by section, tile by tile.
How long is this going to take?
We think that the restoration finished in 6 years.
It's complicated work, says Nardi, because not all problems are visible to the naked eye.
This is a living body which breathes. There are always gaps happening between one layer and the other inside that you cannot see with your eye.
Okay.
And you can detect the problems and the gaps both instrumentally with georadar or a thermovision, or manually, which personally I think is the most efficient tool, tapping the surface. And from the sound that you receive, you can detect either the magnitude of the problem and the location of the problem.
This is over a century in the making. The mosaics were last restored between 1898 and 1907, when cement was used to secure loose tiles, which is now presenting its own set of problems.
We have many areas with big stains of black cement, which is terrible.
Yeah. Again, you're not going to reflect the light.
Right, and what we are doing is to remove with these small rotating tools.
Next comes the cleaning process, essential for the golden bright colors to once again shine. Conservators use a special solution of paper and a chemical solvent.
Giovanni is in the process of applying the paper pulp for cleaning.
Okay.
And at the same time, Benedetta is recording and documenting what Giovanni is doing.
Oh, wow.
And when the poultice is removed,
A lot of dirt.
A lot of dirt.
as for those missing tiles, they'll be recreated in a Venetian kiln, the only one still capable of making gold leaf tiles. Agostini says every step is inspiring to witness.
Have you thought, when you walk around watching this process go on, what this is going to look like 6 years from now compared to the beauty that it already was?
We can imagine it. It was an amazing situation.
The restoration not only extending the life of this priceless artwork, but also helping visitors better understand what it takes to maintain treasured pieces like it.
People have no idea about the fragility of cultural heritage. They believe that because they are 20 centuries old, they can last forever.
Right.
That's absolutely wrong. And they have no idea of the efforts that, for instance, an institution like the Opera del Duomo does every day to save and keep accessible in good state the heritage. And doing this way, people can see what is your everyday life.
It really was spectacular. I mean, photos can't capture how beautiful it is. And that's the important thing. With the restoration going on, people can go and see that this is what it takes to keep treasures like this so that we have them to last forever.
I'm always amazed at the preservation efforts that go into some of these things.
I mean, think about that. It's going to take till 2029 to finish, and it was by hand, by each tile, and the mapping process.
The
all of it
nitty-gritty of
incredible.
it, like just doing
Yeah.
it for days,
Yeah.
years.
But it's so beautiful.
But imagine if they had to close it.
Right.
People would not get a chance
For
to
6
visit.
years, exactly.
So it's brilliant. It's
Yeah.
a brilliant twofer.
Yeah.
It's been nearly 5 years since a fire destroyed Paris's Notre Dame cathedral. 2 days after the fire, French President Emmanuel Macron set a 5-year deadline to rebuild the 800-year-old landmark. That goal is close to being met, thanks to a nearly $1 billion reconstruction effort, which includes the work of an American craftsman. Elaine Cobb has his story.
Last year, Hank Silver was running a small carpentry business in Massachusetts. Through a contact in France, he was offered a rare chance to join a team in Normandy preparing timber to rebuild the nave of Notre Dame.
I could not say no to that opportunity. It's an opportunity that happens once in a lifetime, wouldn't even be the right term. It's once in a millennium, really.
The monumental task of restoring Notre Dame after the 2019 fire called for artisans skilled in traditional building methods.
We first hewed all the logs using axes in order to recreate that rippled finish that you were able to see in the original cathedral in the 13th century framing.
There were unexpected challenges.
The architects asked us to reproduce all of the deformations that had accrued over 800 years. So the ridge is not a straight line, and so we had to follow this curvature.
Then he came to Paris to set the timber trusses in place.
Many carpenters came from United States, from England, from Denmark, from Spain, because they were fond of these techniques, fond of oak. They come to work on Notre Dame, and it's a very fantastic spirit.
There's still a lot of work left to be done to restore Notre Dame to its former glory, but everyone here is confident it will be ready for the planned reopening in December.
4 months ago, the spire rose again into the Paris skyline, topped with a recreation of the original gold cross and rooster. The rooster holds several holy relics, but
They created a second chamber, and it's got a scroll with the names of everybody who worked on the cathedral.
Oh wow,
Isn't that
there are
cool?
names in there.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
That is supremely cool.
Yeah, it's right up there.
Oh,
protecting the city.
With his work on the restoration almost done, Silver says he'd like to stay in France. He took advantage of a site visit by the French president to plead his case.
I did hand Emmanuel Macron a letter requesting French citizenship. He has not been texting me every day, much to my disappointment.
Hank Silver remains hopeful and says he's looking forward to seeing Notre Dame reopen at the end of this year. For CBS Saturday Morning, Elaine Cobb, Paris.
We've got to get Hank Silver his French citizenship.
It is amazing that they're reproducing the deformation.
That
right.
Like all the things that sort of became this shape over 800 years, they have to recreate that part of it. That's so cool.
Fantastic.
Very cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
It's been 5 years since the fire that ravaged Notre Dame in Paris. The blaze destroyed the roof and spire of the cathedral and shocked people around the world, but work continues to restore it to its former glory. Elaine Cobb visited the ironworks in Normandy, where they repaired the cross.
As the blaze engulfed Notre Dame, the iconic spire and the roof made of wood and metal were lost. Astonishingly, though, some of the famous ornaments from the church survived the fire. Among them, the 40-foot-high decorative metal cross that sat atop the lead roof of the choir at the back of the cathedral. As the flames consumed the roof, the cross, which weighs more than 3,300 pounds, fell onto the stone vaults of the choir. So while the metal was damaged, the cross did not melt.
The cross fell really early in the fire, so we were really lucky because the cross didn't burn a lot, and she fell just, it's a miracle.
Vincent Combe is in charge of the restoration of the metal and lead roofs of the cathedral. The cross was taken to this ironworks in Normandy for the complex and delicate repairs. Architect Axel Poncenet was involved in checking it could be repaired to the original 19th century design by Eugène Viollet-le-Duc.
We were really happy to discover that we would be able to use it and forge it again and work with the metal that was here, because the cross was designed by Viollet-le-Duc, so it's a very important piece of Notre Dame.
Earlier this month, the cross was raised again at the workshop to allow the artisans complete the finishing touches, including the lead coverings and gold leaf and the symbolic dragon eating its own tail.
We have a lot of affection for this dragon because we will put again on the sky of Paris roof. So we have lots of animals. We have dragon, we have also dragon on the roof.
For Philippe Jost, in charge of the restoration project, it was an emotional moment.
It's one of these beautiful moments of the restoration of Notre Dame because all the woodwork has disappeared and it was possible to restore the cross. It was not easy.
The cross has now been restored to its former splendor and is back where it belongs, on Notre Dame. For CBS Saturday Morning, Elaine Cobb, Paris.
Absolutely beautiful.
I was just there, and I got to see the construction work going on, and it's amazing. In 5 years, they're on schedule, right? Like all that's been accomplished just in these past, and how complicated everything has been. Really cool.
The Queen aiming to reclaim her throne. When she was launched in 1936, the Queen Mary was the world's largest passenger ship. The Cunard Line spared no expense in constructing the luxury liner. She ferried passengers and even troops during World War II across the Atlantic for more than 30 years. But by the 1980s, the Queen Mary was relegated for use as a tourist attraction in Long Beach, California. Decades of neglect led some to call for her to be scrapped. But now, thanks to a local effort and millions of dollars in upgrades, the Queen Mary is once again welcoming guests. Tom Waite has the story.
The Queen Mary approaches her final resting place at Long Beach.
To great fanfare, in 1967, the Queen Mary makes landfall for the last time in Long Beach, California. Today, the majestic ocean liner sits proudly at the port.
There's a soul here that other ships don't have, but the Queen Mary has it.
Commodore Everett Horde has been looking after the Queen for 43 years. If the ship has a soul, he is the heart.
She's the closest thing to a living being that I have ever commanded.
The Queen Mary is a floating museum.
A farewell party for the 1,200 passengers.
Once the playground for the rich and famous, transporting Hollywood royalty and actual royals, Winston Churchill also took trips aboard the ship, guided from this very bridge.
This is the automatic pilot right here.
But the Queen Mary's reign almost came to an end. After decades in port, the mighty ship fell into disrepair and was in danger of sinking.
The Queen Mary is a lucky ship. I believe the ship has a bit of a providential kiss upon her.
Perhaps that kiss kept the ship afloat. Like other iconic ships, the Queen Mary, with its opulent Art Deco interior, made the transition from a luxury liner to a critical military asset during World War II.
All 2,000 portholes and windows were quickly blacked out. All running lights were extinguished for the next 6 years.
In 1947, the Queen Mary resumed passenger voyages, but with air travel becoming popular, the ship would be retired. The city of Long Beach bought it in 1967 to be a waterfront tourist attraction.
Give the old Queen a tremendous welcome.
But decades later, the pandemic shut down the Queen Mary, and in 2021, the city of Long Beach took control again to save it.
And we evaluated the options to scrap the Queen Mary and the cost to fully restore it and the cost to protect it. And we ultimately made the decision as a city council to give the Queen Mary another shot.
A new partnership with Evolution Hospitality would revive the deteriorating ship and even turn a profit.
The ship does everything it can to create these fun and exciting things to do, and then once we make money, we put it right back into the ship.
The liner's grandeur is attracting new generations of fans.
I want the Queen Mary's legacy to be one of beauty, splendor, heroism.
So now it's up to the Queen's visitors to keep the legacy alive. As long as they keep coming, the Queen Mary will endure. For CBS Saturday Morning, Tom Waite, Long Beach, California.
Majestic is such a great way of describing that, and it's absolutely gorgeous to see the kind of renovations they've put into it. But I have to say that the Commodore is just such a sweet man. I love the way he approaches it.
Did like his hat.
We'll get you one of those.
Right.
I just thought it'd be cool to be on there and sort of feel Titanic-y old school.
Yeah.
No sinking, but Titanic-y old school,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.